Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with change in demand part two. Remember, we're dealing with supply and demand here, except our only focus in this one is this section is going to be the buyer or the consumer. Now, remember that demand is willingness, ability, and desire to buy various quantities of goods and services at various prices. And we're not dealing here with a change in price of the item. Remember, a change in price is a change in quantity demanded, QD. What we're dealing with here is a change in non price factors. That means that regardless of the price, people want more or less of a good or a service. And when we have a change in demand, a change in non price factors, we move the whole curve. So when demand for something goes up, the price overall will go up and the curve shifts to the right. When the demand for something goes down, the price will go down and we shift the entire curve to the left. What shifts these curves? Tipsy. Tastes and preferences, income, both of which we did in part one, population, substitutes and complements, and expectations about future price and availability, which we will do here. So let's focus on that third one. We did taste and preferences and income. Let's look at population. Pretty straightforward and simple. Whenever population increases into an area, then the overall demand for everything pretty much goes up. So the places in green here, places like Florida, Southern Nevada, Idaho, Utah, you're seeing an increase in the population. Therefore, we would say those areas have an increase in demand for basically all goods and services because there's more people there. And then, of course, if a population is leaving an area, places like Northern California, West Texas, places like North Dakota, um, the Rust Belt, which is up there near Pennsylvania, Ohio, then you have a decrease in demand of all goods and services. Price goes down. Pretty simple. More population, more demand. Less population, less demand. Curve moves right or left, depending on increase or decrease. Now, we've got tastes and preferences and income down. We just did population. Let's talk about substitutes and complements. This one often gets confusing because people focus on the idea of a price. And what we're going to be doing here is we got to make sure that we understand that the price of a substitute or a complement is the issue here, not the price of the actual good or service we're talking about. We're talking about prices of substitutes and complements. Now, what is a substitute? A substitute is simply a competing good or service to the market we're talking about. Okay. In this case, the price change of one impacts the other directly. All right. The price change of one impacts the other directly. So when the price of the substitute goes up, the demand for the product we're talking about will actually go up. When the price of a substitute goes down, the demand for the market we're talking about actually goes down. All right. A complement is goods and services that go together. They they meld. They make each other. Um, they complete each other. So in this case, the price change of one impacts the other inversely. So when you see a price of a complement go up, the demand for the market we're talking about is going to go down. When the price of a complement goes down, the demand for the market we're talking about is going up. All right. So let's just take, for instance, the market we're talking about in this case is going to be eggs. So the price of eggs goes up. All right. Well, if that's true, if the price of eggs goes up, what you're going to see is the demand for substitutes to eggs will actually go up. Price of eggs goes up. What are the substitutes? Things like cereal, oatmeal, bagels, and of course, during Easter, if the price of eggs goes up, plaster Easter eggs demand will go up. So we got the substitute happening here. All right. Now, what about complements to eggs? So the price of eggs goes up. What happens to the complements? Well, then if price goes up for eggs, people are going to buy less eggs. Therefore, the demand for things like bacon, sausage, hash browns, and of course, Easter egg dye, demand for these things would go down. Why? Because they're complements to eggs. All right. So notice how the price of something impacts markets that we're looking at here, both substitutes for eggs and complements to eggs. Let's do another one. All right. Let's just take cars. All right, the price of an automobile goes down. Well, what does that mean for substitutes to automobiles? Well, more people are going to buy cars because the price goes down. So what happens to the substitutes like, rides on buses and trains, bicycles, air travel? demand for these things are going to go down because more people are going to be buying cars. Okay. What happens to complements to cars? Things like gas, tires, drive-through fast food, car washes. Well, demand for all this is going to go up because more people own cars, and gas, tires, drive-throughs, and car washes are all complements to the car. All right. So what we have here is connections, relationships, both substitutes and complements. All right, let's do one more. Let's take tortilla chips, which I happen to love. Well, if the price of tortilla chips goes up, then what happens? Well, then the demand for the substitutes to the tortilla chips is going to rise because less people are going to buy tortilla chips. More people are going to buy crackers, pretzels, popcorn, salted almonds, things that'll substitute those chips. And of course, if the price of these tortilla chips goes up, less people are going to buy them, and therefore demand for things like avocados and salsa and nacho cheese and jalapeno peppers, demand for those will actually go down because the price of the tortilla chips is higher. All right. Now, what does this look like? Well, when the um, price of the substitute goes up, demand for the substitute rises as the price goes up. If the substitute price goes down, obviously demand goes down, price goes down. All right. Complements. When the complement price actually drops, then demand goes up and price goes up. All right. So if we have this idea of, again, we go back to um, chips. Well, if the price of chips goes down, then demand for things like salsa and avocados will go up. And of course, naturally, the price will rise with that because you have an increase in demand. When the complement price goes up, then of course demand will drop for what its connection is. So of course, if the price of an automobile goes up, demand for gas will go down and naturally drive the price down as well. So that's substitutes and complements. We have tastes and preferences, income, population, substitutes and complements. Last is expectations about price and availability in the future. This is from a consumer's point of view. So here's the thing about expectations about price and availability. Because I think something will raise in price or be less available in the future, how am I going to act? As a consumer, if I think something's going to raise in the future in price, I think something's going to be less available in the future. What's going to happen? Well, you are going to help make it happen because you're going to immediately go out and try to purchase that item before it raises in price, before it becomes less available in the future. And this becomes kind of like a self fulfilling prophecy because your expectation is that something is going to raise in the future. You're actually helping that happen by going out immediately and making the purchase of the good or service. This happens all the time. Consumers expect prices to go up, so they immediately go out and buy stuff, which helps prices go up. All right. Think about COVID. When COVID started, of course, and you started seeing things happen in Hong Kong and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Singapore, and then, of course, once it hit Seattle with the first cases, people are like, "Oh my God!" I saw that people were making runs on toilet paper in Hong Kong, hand sanitizer. You need that during a pandemic, right? What about masks? These are probably all going to be gone. So immediately, people went out and they went out and purchased these things fearing that they were going to not be available in the future. What did they naturally do? Increased demand. Prices started to go up on these things. You couldn't find toilet paper all over the place. You instinctively helped drive prices up because you expected things not to be available and have that price go up in the future. Of course, same thing when we have wildfires or the PSPSs that shut off the power because of red flag warnings. People go out buy generators, they buy batteries, they buy gasoline because they're afraid they're not going to have that available in the future or that the prices of things are going to go up as they're going to become more scarce. And what are they naturally doing? Increasing demand, increasing price. People do this all the time with their expectation that things aren't going to be available. The reverse doesn't happen as much, but it will often happen with like newfound, like the update of items. So when you when you have like a new game system or a new type of phone or stuff, people will all of a sudden they expect in the future, you know what, the new version of whatever is coming out. So I'm just going to hold off on buying those things and that kind of thing. And that, of course, drives the price down. So if there's a new Nintendo Switch coming out, which is supposed to happen, I guess, then people ease off on buying the old Nintendo Switches and the price starts to drop. If you know that a sale is coming, like Black Friday sales, of course, after Thanksgiving, then people in the beginning of November will hold off on buying things because they know a sale is coming later on in November. So they don't buy things. Doing that creates the demand to go down overall. All right. So changes in demand. In the first one, we had taste and preferences. Second one, we had income. This one, we completed population, substitutes and complements, and expectations about price and availability. And remember, these are non price changes, these are changes in demand.